everybody. This is episode 5 of Shooting the Shit. I'm here with my very good friend Jake, all the way from school. He is at IG, Jake Lewis Official. Jake is an audio engineer, music producer, and DJ. How we doing, man? Haven't seen you in a while.
Dude,
Been a
I'm
couple
doing
years?
great. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know if it's been a couple years. It's been at least a year.
At least a year.
But yeah,
It feels like a long time.
It's
Yeah.
definitely been a long time. No,
Definitely.
yeah, I'm like very excited to see you again. It's been a long
Definitely.
time.
So just to give a little background, me and Jake went to New Paltz together, and then you transferred last year, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we were there for a couple of years, and yeah. So let's just hop right into it. Explain to me how you got your start. You started in DJing first before you got into audio engineering.
Yeah, so basically the way that I started getting into music in general was in the realm of private event DJing. I remember when I was about, I would say 12 or 13, my friend got a pair of turntables.
Yeah.
A cheap pair of turntables, DJ decks. And I saw it and it was like the coolest thing ever. And I was like, I have to know more about that, because I remember he turned it on and we were messing around with it in his room, and I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. And I bugged my parents, and eventually they bought me the same exact little pair of turntables, and it came with the software and everything, and I downloaded some music and started messing around with it in my room. I remember when I was about 13, I bought a party speaker, like one of those fat party speakers that you would use for a big party, and I set it up on a tripod in my room, in my house.
Yeah.
And I'm blasting this thing in my room in like the middle of the day, just blasting club music.
Yeah.
Starting to really get a feel for what mixing is and beat matching. And
So it started with house music and everything, like EDM.
oh yeah. Oh, in terms of genre, oh yeah, started with house music. But it on a side note, that kind of, looking back on it now, made me realize just how cool my parents are, thinking of like, they were cool with me blasting house music in the middle of the day on a tripod with a huge speaker on it. That's beside the point. But yeah, in terms of genre, I grew up on classic rock music. My parents were, yeah, I know. We've talked about it. We've even been to some rock concerts together.
Yeah, exactly.
But
We'll get to that later.
yeah, but yeah, it started. I grew up on classic rock, AC/DC, Led Zeppelin, the Beatles, Van Halen, Motley Crue, Aerosmith, all those guys. And I think the reason that I loved that music so much, aside from the fact that it was my parents who introduced me to it, and I kind of had that indoctrination aspect, you could even say, where I had no choice.
Yeah.
But obviously I reached a certain age at a point where I would have been able to say, you know what, this isn't really my thing anymore. But that didn't happen because rock music to me, or at least rock in the context of through the 60s to the late 80s, because 90s is really, in my opinion, when it kind of made a huge
everything changed,
huge switch. It has a sort of grungy yet authentic emotional drive to it that really allows you to connect with the music itself, in my opinion, something that isn't really found in too much popular music these days. And the reason that I started getting into house music so much is because I found that same characteristic that I loved in classic rock in house music.
You would never think to compare the two. With DJing stuff, what were maybe... Do you remember like the first gig you ever had? You have a good story about that?
Oh, yeah. So I started, like I said, in private event DJing.
Yeah.
At a really young age. I started DJing in my room at around 12, 13, and I really wanted to get into it as much as I possibly could. And at such a young age, it's hard because, you can't be going to clubs. You can't be working at clubs. And certainly most other venues and live events are 18 and up, so it was a problem. So what I did was I called every DJ company in on Long Island that I could possibly find. I went on Google and I found every DJ company on Long Island, and I called them up, and I tried my best to not sound 13.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? So
Did you just call him up and be like, "Hey, like my
I
name's
would
Jake.
just
I
I would
want to
just
get
call
into
them
the
up.
business."
Absolutely, I would call them up and say, "Hey, my name's Jake. I'm a local DJ on Long Island. I'm in the area. I came across your company. I've been to a few of your events, and I'm really interested in being a part of your company. So I'm just calling to see if you have any openings for new DJs."
Yeah.
And sometimes they would say no, not right now, and then other times they would ask for my number, and they'd call me back or they wouldn't, and then other times they would say, yeah, sure, come in,
That's awesome.
come have an interview. And I remember the first time I ever went to an interview for a DJ position at a DJ company on Long Island. I was 14, and I show up. I had my mom drive me, of course, 14. I show up, and I walk in the office. Beautiful building. This is like a very established...
And this is in Long Island.
On Long Island, right? Very established DJ company. And I walk in, and I said, hey, I'm Jake. I'm here to meet... I forgot his name at this point. It might have been like Eric or whatever.
Yeah.
But I'm here. I have an appointment, right? I have an appointment. I have an interview at this time in 10 minutes. I'm here. And I remember the receptionist looking at me.
Who is this kid?
Who are you?
Yeah.
What the hell is going on? She almost did one of those like look arounds. She looked right, looked left, and was like, is this really happening? And no, but I was taking myself seriously, and I tried to convey that as much as possible, and she was like, all right, yeah, take a seat on the couch. I'll call him up. So she called his office, rang him. He said, sure, send him in. He still had no idea that I was 14. I walk in his office.
Did you tell him you weren't 14? Like,
he didn't ask
for your age.
No, he didn't ask an age.
Okay, got you.
So I walk in the office. He's sitting there, and you had to have seen his face. And he stood up, and I really appreciate that he treated the situation in this way and was really respectful and mature about it, because what he did was he stood up and he shook my hand and he said, I'm blank, whatever his name was. Yeah. Nice to meet you. Great to meet you. Thank you for coming by. And we sat down and we had a real interview.
That's awesome.
We had a real interview for about a half hour, and little 14-year-old me was freaking out in my head. But, here's a grown man who does this for a living, treating me like an adult and really giving me an interview. And really that was right there was the moment that I realized this is something I want to be a part of, because just being in the interview made me more excited than anything else I had ever really involved myself with.
It felt more professional, like when you were at such a young age, definitely.
Right. And
that's really great that he just kind of took you in, because people just have to understand you got to start somewhere. You know what I mean? He probably understood that. Like, this kid, he's got drive, So when you came into places like this, do you ever have to present playlists? Is that like kind of like an audition in a sense, where you show them your music taste?
Well, pretty much the way it worked in this specific interview was he realized he wasn't going to hire me.
Yeah.
I was 14. And I realized he wasn't going to hire me. But he showed me around the office. He took me into the warehouse, and I remember seeing just crates and crates and shelves full of DJ equipment and just going crazy over it. It was the coolest thing ever. I obviously didn't get hired, but subsequent interviews in the future, they ranged. They varied in what exactly the interview consisted of. There were a couple times where I had to almost audition for them, where I would play like a 15-minute set.
That's really interesting.
I remember there was one time where I auditioned for a DJ position at a company where they were cleaning all of the equipment one day in the garage, because they had this garage where they filled with all their equipment. and they said, yeah, we're cleaning today, so come by. You can plug into one of our speakers, and you can do like a 15 or 20-minute set while we're cleaning. And I was like, all right, this is gonna be cool. And I did it, and I did a few jobs with them. It never really panned out into a long-term relationship,
Right.
but it was cool. It was like me just kind of stuffed in the corner while
That's
they were
awesome.
while they were all cleaning.
So besides private events like that, were there any, big parties that you did, or, any big venues that really made you like hyped up that you had a big crowd?
Yeah, absolutely. I've done. I can't even count how many events I've done in total. Anything from boat parties to sweet 16s to bar mitzvahs to weddings to birthday parties, house parties, all types of stuff. I've been doing it since I started. I should say that I started roadieing
Yeah.
when I was about 14, where I would just carry the equipment in and I never even touched the turntables.
I remember you were explaining to me that a couple
Yeah.
years ago.
I did that until I was about 17. And then when I was 17, and from then on, I started getting my chance at actually DJing parties. And, at first, I remember one of the first events I ever did was a bowling alley.
Oh my God.
It was great. It was
That's such a cool venue. People are probably getting drunk there. Probably having a good
people were
time.
loving it.
Yeah.
It was great.
I
yeah.
can imagine.
It was like 2015
Uh-huh.
or whatever, and I'm in a bowling alley.
That's
And I'm all
great.
set up. But yeah, people were loving it. There was that, but I've done sweet 16s and boat parties and all types of stuff. So weddings, tons of weddings. I love weddings.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure weddings are probably the best because you're with all age groups. You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
You're getting everything.
Right. Yeah, I love weddings. To answer your question though, was there ever a time where I did like a huge event? And there have been a bunch, but one that really stands out in my mind is about 2 years ago, I would say. I did a wedding in a castle. But yeah, it was this massive castle, and in the center of it was a huge event space, and there were these. They called themselves gypsies. So I know some people say you're not supposed to say that, but they called themselves that. They said we want a traditional gypsy wedding, and I said. On the phone, I said, "Oh, absolutely."
Yeah.
I had no idea. I don't know what that means. And I've talked to people since then. They say, "Oh, well, you're supposed to say Romanian." I don't know, whatever. But I did this wedding, and apparently in that culture, it's huge. It's a huge event, over the top, as over the top as possible. And this really took the cake because it was, first of all, in a castle. It was in this massive event space in the center courtyard. They had about 800 people.
Oh my God.
At the wedding.
Wow, that must have been a banger. So what type of music did you play there?
Well,
Were you rocking with the Romanian music?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
They send. See, usually the way it works for private events is you kind of ask them what they want to hear, and they'll send you maybe 20 songs that they want to hear, and from there you can kind of get a jumping off point of this is the type of music they're interested in. Obviously, they can give you special requests. But because I told them that I'm not that experienced with that culture's music, so they sent me a whole spreadsheet of music, which was great because it really gave me a basis. They didn't give me everything. There was still a lot of improvisation there, but they provided me a pretty long list of music that they wanted to hear, and I've probably never heard a single song.
Was it strictly Romanian or was it American?
A lot of it was in, I guess the language is Romanian, but it was a completely different language.
Is it hard to play music from different languages?
No, actually, it's funny. A lot of Eastern European music is similar, in the sense that it follows the same structure. It's very similar to house music, where it's almost kind of clubby, where it has a 4 on the floor, very thumpy kick, and just a 2 and 4 snare, and then there'll usually be some instruments on top and a vocalist. But it's actually pretty easy to mix because it's a very straightforward genre. It's a very straightforward beat.
Right.
You know, you can
The same structure for a lot of the songs.
right. You
Yeah.
can really follow the structure of the song when mixing all that music together live. Because whenever I do DJ, it's always live. People ask me that sometimes, and it's never pre-recorded. I never do pre-recorded sets. It's always live because I feel like that kind of takes away from the authenticity
Makes it more like a
of the
show.
event. Right. Right.
Definitely. When you say you do it live, you mean like you're actually mixing the songs live and you're not actually doing it before?
Right. So I'll be playing one song. I'll be playing one song, and I will mix that into another song live on the spot.
You set up the BPMs. I remember one time you were like actually like showing me, and that was a big breakthrough for me because I never conceptually thought about how to DJ. But when you showed me the lining up of, okay, this song is this BPM and it ends at this part, and that's where you make the switch. Is that kind of how it works?
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
So the basic fundamentals of mixing when it comes to DJing is, in my opinion, this is the basis, is called beat matching.
Yeah.
Where you want to match up the BPMs, the tempo of the two songs that you're mixing together, or at least get them within one or two BPM points of each other. Because by doing that, what you can do is you can play each song simultaneously on top of each other, and they'll match up. It won't sound messy. It'll sound tight and clean. And a lot of the times, producers make music intentionally, with the anticipation of it being mixed in with other music. So what they do is they will have an intro and an outro at the beginning and end of the song, where it's very simple. It's just some drums and maybe one instrument, so that you can loop that specific section of the song, the intro or the outro, and mix just that part into whatever other song you're mixing into, so that, let's say vocals or any other element, any other melodic element in the song doesn't clash with what you're mixing with. It's very simple, and it's tight and clean.
So that's like the golden rule, basically, to start with the BPMs.
With beat matching, yeah. With beat matching, absolutely.
Is there any way to make it sound good? Or is there like a golden rule they have to be the same? Or like, let's say like one is a little off. Like will you notice the difference?
Well, it really depends what part of the song you're choosing to mix into the already playing song.
Right.
Like, for example, if you're going to loop the chorus, right? If you're going to loop the chorus, or a really big part of the song where there's a lot of instruments happening, there's a lot going on. If you're going to try to mix that into a song that's already playing, you're going to run into some issues because there's a lot going on. It won't sound very clean. And this is assuming that the BPMs are the same.
Yeah.
Right? But if you're mixing just, let's say, the intro, where it's probably just a kick, a snare, maybe a hi-hat, maybe one instrument, it's very clean, it's very simple, and really all it's doing is keeping the beat. It's almost inaudible when you mix it in properly with other music, because there's really not much going on. So yeah, it does matter what part of the song you're mixing in. You want to mix in the simplest part of the song. At least that's my kind of technique. You want to mix in the simplest part of the song into the music that's already playing, so that it's undetectable and it's very smooth.
Okay, I understand that. So when you're making playlists, depending on where the place is, does it really matter? Are you thinking of the people that are going to be there? Is that like the biggest factor to how you're going to frame it?
Well, when doing private event DJing, weddings, sweet 16s, anything from that area of entertainment, you have to take into consideration who's going to be there.
Yeah.
You also have to take into consideration the type of people that are going to be there, where it is, when it is. Like, for example, a night party is always going to be a little more jumping than a day party.
Yeah.
That's just kind of how it is, because people don't drink during the day.
I
mean, they
not
do,
as much as night,
but at night people like to have
much
a good
more
time.
people drink at night.
You have a wedding on a Sunday afternoon. People might have a few mimosas, but you have a wedding on a Saturday night, there might be a few people
Yeah,
that get pretty slammed.
there's gonna be some mistakes
And I've
that are
seen
made.
it.
Yeah.
I've seen it many times.
Yeah. Okay. Wait. I'm sorry.
yeah.
We gotta talk about this. Have you seen any like really messed up people at weddings?
Oh, yeah.
Where it was like bad. Like,
Oh,
do you
yeah.
have any stories
Oh,
or no?
sure. Tons.
Okay. Yeah.
Tons.
Give me your best one.
So I remember there was this one time where I was doing a yacht party.
Mm-hmm.
There's a really nice yacht on the Nautical Mile in Freeport.
Yeah.
And they do these kind of club nights, right? On Saturday nights, sometimes in the summer. And I remember I was DJing one of them last year. It was Saturday night, probably 1:00 in the morning. I'm DJing this party. There's, the boat is packed, maybe 200, 300 people on the boat. It's a 3-level boat. And there was this guy who just got way, way too drunk.
Yeah.
I mean, to the point where it was like maybe he's on something else, but this guy was messed up.
Yeah.
And I remember I guess the owner of the boat, but the guy that was in charge, he was trying to kick him off the boat.
That's such a hard thing to do.
Yeah, because you're on
gotta
a boat.
You gotta get another guy to come. You
Yeah.
know? You can't just throw him in the water.
And I remember the bartender even getting involved and being like, "Where are you gonna put him? We're on a boat." And this guy was causing a scene. He was going up to women, saying all kinds of things, doing all kinds of things. He was trying to start fights, throwing drinks, getting rowdy. He came up. He wouldn't leave me alone, yelling at me to play the same song over and over and over again, which always happens, by the way. There's always someone that will come up to me at any event and ask for the same song 10 times all the time, even if I've already played
sure.
it.
I used to do that when I was going to parties and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, hey, can you play this song?
DJ
like,
abuse.
Yeah, exactly. That's the term.
Yeah.
That's great.
But yeah, there was that one time where they were trying to kick him off, and it's like, where are you gonna put him?
Yeah. Nothing you could really do about that.
Nothing you could do about that. But
let
then
the guy sleep on the boat.
I think they like put him in some room somewhere and
just quarantined him.
Yeah. But there have been times, people have too good of a time. It's happened.
Yeah.
It's happened.
So for me personally, right, I've been getting into very basic recording. I've only really known audio production for a couple months, and so I've been putting out some stuff on SoundCloud, and when I make a song and I release it, I realize I'm kind of limited in terms of what I could do with plugins and how I could edit further. So is there any advice you could give to me or anybody out there who is making music to try to take their audio production to the next level?
Oh, absolutely. This is something that I struggled with for a long time. I started producing music in 2012, 2013.
Yeah.
So I've been doing it for the past 7-8 years. And the first few years of that, I was under the school of thought that your equipment defines the quality of production that you can produce. Which is, for anybody that's listening to this, if you don't take anything else away from this, it's that your equipment does not define the quality of production that you can produce. It's all about your individual knowledge of how to manipulate and how to properly and appropriately use the tools that you have at your disposal. Because really, when it comes to plugins, when it comes to third-party VSTs and all these different audio units that you can use for processing, most of them do the same thing, right? You have compressors, you have reverb, delay, saturation, filtering, EQ, all types of stuff. And they all pretty much do the same thing. Obviously, some of them provide further functionalities and can avail you much more opportunity in how you can manipulate the audio. But you have to learn first what reverb does in order to properly use reverb, or the same thing with compression or EQ or any of that. And
you can't just hop right into it.
No, you can't.
You have to
hop
really
right into
understand everything. And that's something that I got stuck with, because I realized, I learned, when I was in audio production in New Paltz, I learned the textbook versions of what EQ
Yeah.
or compressor or limiter is. And not to say that, because of COVID, I wasn't actually able to do it in person and like, try to learn it like on the program. So that's COVID's fault. But,
Yeah, right.
but yeah, besides that, the only
Coronavirus killed my music career.
yeah, killing everyone's career. Besides that, like, I realized that the only way to learn these plugins is to actually like make music, make audio recordings, and then go in after,
Yeah.
and just mess around with it.
Yeah, man. You just gotta get your hands dirty.
See what it sounds like.
Yeah. Yeah, you just gotta get your hands dirty. I mean, I remember being 15 and literally going on Google and Googling how to get better as a music producer.
Right.
And I watched so many bullshit videos. So many just like guys that would sit in front of their webcam and talk for 20 minutes about all these little like industry hacks you can do, to gain recognition and exposure and all that. And you know what? That's not what I'm looking for. I want to know how to get better as a producer. I want to know how to take what I'm hearing in my head and translate it accurately into the production software. And the only time that I ever heard something that made sense and that was true, and it's the one thing that I live by as a music producer since I've heard it, was Avicii, the DJ and producer. He did an interview back in 2000, I think 14, and he said the only way to get better as a music producer is to spend as much time in the studio.
Yeah, it's just trial and error.
Only way.
Yeah.
It's the only way. Because you could read all the textbooks you want, all the manuals. You could watch as many YouTube videos and tutorials as you want. You can do all of that, but it doesn't mean anything unless you really know how to do it. Unless you can sit down and do it and know that there isn't always going to be someone that you can ask when you're having a technical issue. You have to be able to fix that on your own. That's the sign of a truly good music producer, is someone that's having an issue and doesn't get overwhelmed and is able to utilize the knowledge that they've amassed over their years or however long, however much time they've been producing, and be able to fix that problem. Or not, even if there isn't a problem, just be able to create something that they're hearing in their head that they want to create. So it's really just about getting your hands dirty, like most things. You just got to do it.
You just need experience.
You just need to do it.
Yeah, you just got to fucking try.
You just got to do it. And it's like there's no right way to do it.
You know what I mean? Like, if you just remind yourself, anybody in the creative industry should always keep reminding themselves, you just got to keep grinding. You know what I mean? And it's really hard to be in a creative industry, especially with, everything going on now.
Oh, absolutely.
I think it's especially hard for people like us. One, because to start with it, we weren't known as people who would easily get jobs in the first place. Being in a creative business, it's hard to get jobs in the first place. So on top of that, with just everything tanking, it's definitely going to be a challenge for us. But dude,
it's a huge problem for the music industry right now, dude. It's bad. It's really bad. Did you hear about the Chainsmokers concert recently?
No, what happened?
Yeah, get this. 3 days ago, there was a charity concert. All the profits went to, I presume, some COVID relief fund. It was a charity concert. And the Chainsmokers headlined. The Chainsmokers are arguably the largest electronic music duo in the world right now. And they headlined this very small charity event out in Southampton. It was actually really funny. You would think the Chainsmokers would be performing with, Martin Garrix or
the biggest name,
whatever huge name. the I think the mayor of the town and his band of just his friends from high school,
God.
They opened for the Chainsmokers.
No one wants to perform.
How crazy is that?
No one wants to perform.
Yeah, maybe it's that, or maybe they struck a deal where it's like, all right, we'll let you perform if you let me and my friends open for you.
Yeah, exactly. But that's true. That's true.
They did this concert where it was all cars. Everyone was supposed to be in their cars. There was 600 cars, about 3,000 people, this huge field where it was a car concert. That's what they're calling it. Where they had all these cars lined up and everyone was in their cars with the windows down, and the Chainsmokers were on stage performing. Pretty cool, I guess.
Yeah.
But what happened was everyone was like, "Screw it," and they just got out of their cars. And what you ended up having was just a regular old concert.
Yeah.
Which obviously during Corona is illegal and against regulation. So the Department of Health got involved, and they sent a letter to I guess it's the mayor or whoever of Southampton, and we're basically just like, how did you let this happen? You performed. You were there.
Yeah.
Like you opened up. You were the opening act. How did you allow this to happen? There were 3,000 people. No masks, no socially distancing, nothing. It was just it was almost as if it was under normal pretenses. Just 3,000 people in a crowd. And say what you will about it, but during Corona, obviously that's going to stir the pot a bit.
Yeah, of course.
And it was big news.
Wow, yeah, I actually never heard about that. I'm surprised.
Yeah, it was only 3 days ago.
Wow, okay. That's really interesting. Speaking about live events, I know one concert that we went to, wearing the shirt, Greta Van Fleet. So I wanted to talk about this because when we went to the concert, one, just to point out before I even talk about what I want to talk about, it was a great fucking concert.
Oh,
if you don't know Greta Van Fleet,
fucking kicked ass.
Yeah, it was awesome. If you don't know Greta Van Fleet, if you know Led Zeppelin, then you kind of know them because they sound just like Led Zeppelin. They were my age, I think. I think all of them are like 20
they're super
now.
young.
Yeah, they're super young, and I think that's the biggest appeal for me because going to the concert, I realized that these guys were my age and they're killing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess I'll ask you, like, are you still fans of Greta Van Fleet?
Oh yeah. I love them. I mean, because I kind of go through phases.
Yeah.
Where I'll listen to just house music, just rock, just. I even listen to just some jazz now. I'll listen to a specific genre for like the week or whatever. But when I'm kind of going through my classic rock phase or just my rock phase in general, because I guess you can't really say Greta Van Fleet's classic rock.
Yeah.
I listen to them. I love them. They haven't really put much out though.
Right.
They put out a single, in 2019 for a movie.
Mm-hmm.
It was the soundtrack for a movie.
Yeah, I listened to that.
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah, it wasn't bad.
It was good. I don't think it was as raw as their other stuff because it was for a movie.
Definitely, yeah.
But Anthem of the Peaceful Army in 2018,
there were some bangers off that.
Kicked
definitely.
ass.
Yeah, we saw the tour for that. Yeah,
we did see the tour for that.
Yeah,
that kicked ass.
Which is really cool. Yeah, there are some really great songs.
Yeah.
The thing getting into how my opinion has changed, right? I'm not denying that they're great musicians. I think they're all incredible musicians. I think in the past they've made some very good songs. Like to this day, they've made some very good songs, even if it sounds just like Led Zeppelin or very similar.
Yeah.
I still could see that they're great musicians. On the other hand, the way it's getting for me, I won't just sit down and listen to Greta Van Fleet.
You won't, you said?
I won't. Like,
okay.
If they put out new music, I will be there and just to see what it sounds like. You know what I mean? Like, maybe occasionally I'll listen to a song here or there, but I really don't listen to them anymore. And I'll tell you why. I think it's because, before I was a huge Zeppelin fan, and I think I've been always diving deeper into Zeppelin. Mm-hmm. And since they do sound so similar, like, at least for me, I know some people claim that they hear a difference, and I totally get that. I totally hear how some people could say that they think the singer might sound a little different, but for me at least, and for a lot of people, I think they sound way too similar, and some of the things that the lead singer does, I think really puts me off. Do you think the similarity between them puts you off, or it doesn't really affect your perception?
Well, see, it's interesting because if you were to remove the lead singer, right, would you still say that they sound like Led Zeppelin?
Here's the thing: the drummer, no; the guitarist, yes, and that's what gets to me. Since it's the guitar and the lead singer that sound very similar to Robert Plant and Jimmy Page, those are the big two standouts. The drummer doesn't sound like John Bonham, I think. I think there definitely are some differences.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah, the bassist too. The bassist is doing his own thing. Again, they're all incredible musicians.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they're all like very talented. Also, just the singer in general, I think he's a little I think his voice in general, I'm not really into it. Yeah, I'm not really that into it anymore. Certain songs he's great on. I think he's a little screechy.
He's a little screechy.
He is a little screechy. I think the thing with Robert Plant that was interesting was Robert Plant was also very screechy. Like he had a very high
Yeah.
voice, 100%.
Yeah.
But I think there was a power to his voice, like a roughness that I don't really get as
I mean,
much.
you have to have that power to do something like Immigrant Song.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
to
Like,
really
you got-
go off on that, definitely. Do you think Greta is going to continue to get more fans, or
Well,
like what do you think is their future?
I think like they're in an interesting position
Yeah.
because any musician has to continually put out music at some rate to continuously gain fans and retain their already existing fans, because
Yeah.
fan retention is just as important as fan creation. And they, like I said, they haven't really put much out
Yeah.
in the past year and a half. You know, they had Anthem of the Peaceful Army in 2018, and they had that one single in 2019. I could be mistaken.
Yeah.
I don't think I am, but I could be mistaken. But that album was 2018, right?
Yeah, it was 2018. I'm pretty
Yeah,
sure.
right. So that was 2018, and then they had a single in 2019, and they haven't really put much out since.
Yeah.
And I think that that's going to be really important for them after all this coronavirus business is done, is because they know that they sound like Led Zeppelin.
Yeah.
Like, they know it. And just by looking out at the crowd at their concerts, they see everybody's age.
I was wearing a Zeppelin shirt when I went.
Yeah, you did, yeah. But, like, they see everyone's age. Like, I went to a concert with my mom. Like, I went to a Greta Van Fleet Greta Van Fleet concert.
You went to
with
another
my
one,
mom.
right? Yeah,
I went to a second one with my mom. And, like, everyone at the show was older, 40s, 50s, 60s, possibly even older. Because they know that they sound like Led Zeppelin. So I think that they are at a crucial point right now. You know, they've put out a couple albums. They've put out a few singles. They're relatively established. They had a peak. You know, they had a peak. I would say maybe 6 months ago, where they were getting really hot.
Yeah, they were. Yeah,
They were getting hot,
definitely.
And
they were on a lot of radio
hell yeah,
stations.
they were on a lot of radio, dude. They were in video games.
Yeah,
They were
blowing
doing the
up.
soundtrack for video games. They got a movie contract.
Yeah.
You know, they did the soundtrack for it. Dude, they were killing it.
They're appealable, definitely.
Super
they
appealable.
appeal to a lot of people.
But I think right now, as we speak, they have to be working. They have to be doing
They must
something right now. They have to have something in the works, because they haven't put much out yet. Since that last album, and people forget very quickly.
Yeah.
You know, it's like rock music is not in. No matter how popular Greta Van Fleet ever gets, rock music as a genre
It's
is
done.
not in.
Yeah, it
rock
isn't.
is dead, unfortunately. You know, generally speaking, rock is not in anymore.
It's on the out, yeah.
And-
Especially especially what they do, which is 70s rock.
Yeah,
or which
and that's-
sounds like
that's what I'm
70s
saying.
rock,
If they're trying to be somewhat of a revivalist group, let's say, where they're kind of bringing rock back, they got to stay on the ball with that, man. I
Yeah.
mean, they can't be taking breaks. They
Definitely not.
They need to
Keep pushing,
to
yeah.
keep up the heat, to keep up the pressure, because otherwise people forget.
Yeah, easily, yeah.
Because they're not exposed to it all the time. It's not like a rapper, let's
drops
say,
shit all the time,
who
yeah.
drops shit all the time,
Yeah.
or fucking takes a 6-month break, and then comes back and drops a number one single or
Yeah.
whatever, something that charts, after not dropping something for a year, 6 months or whatever. You can't do that with Greta Van Fleet with rock music,
Yeah.
because people aren't exposed to rock anymore
You gotta
like they
keep your
are
fan
with
base
rap
up.
and all that shit.
Yeah.
Like, they got to keep the heat up, and I hope they do, because I do like them.
Yeah.
Because they're good musicians. But what I would like to see from them is they're creating their own sound. I would like
Yeah.
to see that, because right now I don't think they're really doing that. What do you think?
Here's the thing, and again, I can't not talk about Led Zeppelin. Like,
Of course.
when Zeppelin does certain like motifs, I guess you could call it, like in a in Whole Lotta Love, when he's making like sex noises and he's like, yeah. Greta Van Fleet doesn't
Doesn't he say some shit where he's like, "Oh, a little to the left, baby"?
Yeah. Like Greta Van Fleet, like the lead singer will get up there and start moaning like that,
Yeah.
and start doing those like
Uh-huh.
and
He did that in Highway Tune, right?
yeah, exactly. So I think that like going as far to mimic that
Uh-huh.
and take little things, like little motifs they did, like that makes me mad. Like that not mad, not mad.
No,
but
I get it.
It really puts me off.
Uh-huh.
I think the best way to explain listening to Greta Van Fleet is when I'm listening to them, like it sounds great, but it's so impossible for me to not associate Zeppelin.
Yeah.
And I think that's a little off-putting because, you know, when they came out with their first album, or I think it was like From the Fires, I think that's what it was called.
Mm-hmm.
And they came out, there was the break, right? They were off for like 3 years, and then Anthem came out, right?
Right.
And I said to myself, I'm like, I hope they go in a different direction, and they didn't. It was still a great album. They still put out great music.
Oh, yeah.
But moving forward, you know, I'm always gonna listen to their shit because I'm always kind of curious if they're gonna stay the same. So I guess it's appealing to me at least because I'm always willing to give them a try. At least I'm not saying like, oh, like fuck them, like I'm not even gonna listen to them. If they put out an album, I'm listening to every song, and because I want to see like where they're going. Like I'm very interested in them, but I wouldn't say I listen to them a lot. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, because like right now, they're in this weird spot where they're kind of in the middle of this triangle.
Yeah.
Where one corner is you're just a straight up cover band.
Mm-hmm.
One corner is you're a wannabe band where you're just you're just a wannabe Led Zeppelin, and then the third corner is you're just influenced by Led Zeppelin.
Yeah.
You get it? So they're just kind of in the middle. It's like, which one are you?
Right.
I hope they move towards the influenced corner because I don't want them to be a wannabe band.
Definitely.
And I don't want them to be a cover band. They're not a cover band.
They're not at all. They do their original shit, which is good.
Their original shit, but like you said, with the moaning and all that shit, it's like you're starting to move towards being a wannabe band.
Yeah.
And don't be a wannabe band.
Definitely not.
You should. It's not a good look for them. It's not a good look for rock. It's not a way to bring rock back. Because if you're gonna be a wannabe band, just be a cover band.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean that's what I'm saying. I hope they kind of
take
a little introspective look at themselves and be like, you know what, guys, we're starting to sound like a little bit of a wannabe band.
Yeah.
Let's admit that we're influenced by Led Zeppelin. Let's stop putting on this charade that we're a 70s sounding rock band. Let's admit to ourselves that we're like a very Led Zeppelin sounding rock band and take that and run with it and not copy Led Zeppelin.
They have so much talent. They could go so many different avenues. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so much. I mean, the lead singer, crazy voice.
Dude, yeah.
Like, he's crazy.
Jake, thank you very much for coming on. I had an absolutely great time. It's great chatting with you because you're an audio guy, so someone I could relate to. So thank you very much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. I haven't seen you in a really long time.
Yeah, it was really great.
Awesome seeing you.
So I just want to give you another quick plug. Check him out on Instagram, Jake Lewis Official. Also on Facebook, Jake Lewis Music. Yes, and thank you very much. Shooting the shit out. Thank you very much, boy. Give me a fist bump, bro. All right. Catch you later.
Awesome.